What if I told you that Paris, the undisputed food capital of the world, didn't actually invent most of the dishes it's famous for? Paris, the city of light, the city of romance, revolution, and a surprisingly aggressive food PR campaign. 10 foods the world thinks of as quintessentially French. Croissants, creme brulee, the baguette. Classics, right? Here's the problem. Some of these were stolen. Some were invented by accident. One was created by a painter. And at least one never actually happened in Paris at all. Paris didn't just make great food. Paris made the world believe the food was theirs. Welcome to Dish Decoded. Let's decode this. Let's start with the most iconic pastry on earth, the croissant. Buttery, flaky, layered. The thing French boulangeries have built their entire reputation on. Except, it's Austrian. The croissant descends from the Kipferl, a crescent-shaped Austrian pastry dating back centuries. The legend says it was created in Vienna after the Ottoman siege of 1683. Bakers working through the night heard the Ottomans tunneling under the city walls, raised the alarm, and celebrated by baking pastries shaped like the crescent on the Ottoman flag. But here's what Paris actually did. In 1838, an Austrian artillery officer named August Zang opened a Viennese bakery in Paris. He brought the Kipferl with him. Parisian bakers tasted it, went home, and reinvented it. They swapped the dough for laminated puff pastry, hundreds of butter-folded layers, and created something richer, crispier, and completely addictive. They didn't invent it, they perfected it, and in doing so, they made it theirs. Verdict: borrowed and perfected. Austria brought the shape, Paris brought the butter. Creme brulee. Silky custard under a crackling, caramelized sugar crust. The dessert where everyone wants to be the one holding the torch. Here's where it gets messy. Spain has crema catalana, a stovetop custard with a sugar crust, documented as far back as the 14th century. England has Trinity cream, a Cambridge recipe from 1879 using a hot iron to caramelize the top. And France? France has a recipe attributed to François Massielot from 1691 in a cookbook called Le Cuisinier Royal et Bourgeois. All three countries have receipts. All three are claiming the dish, but ask a French chef. There's only one answer. And more importantly, ask the world. The French recipe is the one everyone learned. The French name is the one on every menu from Tokyo to Texas. The name won the war. That's the French superpower. Verdict: disputed on three fronts. France won by naming it better. This one actually belongs to Paris. Not the fancy Paris. The working class Paris. The pre-dawn Paris. Les Halles was the great central market of Paris, running from the 12th century until 1971. Thousands of workers arrived before dawn to unload fish, meat, and vegetables. They needed something warm, cheap, and filling. Onions were the cheapest thing in the market. Leftover bread, whatever stock was available. French onion soup started as peasant food, not because the French romanticized poverty, but because poverty demanded creativity. Slow caramelizing onions until sweet, ladling in beef broth, floating stale bread on top, melting cheese over everything. It was cheap alchemy. The dish traveled from the Les Halles taverns to Parisian restaurants to the world. The gratin, the broiled cheese crust yet it came later, added by chefs who wanted to elevate it. That was the Paris move. Take working class ingenuity and make it beautiful. Verdict: genuinely Parisian. Born in the dark before the city woke up. The baguette is arguably the most recognizable food object in the world. A meter of bread tucked under a French person's arm. It's practically the national logo. It was invented because of a law. In 1920, France passed a labor regulation prohibiting bakers from working before 4 a.m. The problem? Traditional round loaves, miches, required hours to make and needed to be in the oven long before that. You couldn't make bread in time for morning customers. Bakers needed a bread that could be made quickly after 4 a.m. and still be ready by the time Paris woke up for breakfast. The solution was simple. Make the loaf longer and thinner. Thinner bread bakes faster. A baguette can go from shaped dough to finished loaf in about 20 minutes. Practicality became poetry. A labor law shaped an icon. And now UNESCO has listed the tradition of French baguette making as intangible cultural heritage. A bread invented by bureaucracy, listed by the United Nations, only in France. Verdict: made in Paris. Made because of paperwork, now protected by the UN. The macaron you know, 2 almond meringue shells sandwiched with ganache or buttercream, is a Parisian invention. But the macaron itself is much older and comes from somewhere else entirely. The almond cookie traces back to Italian monasteries in the Renaissance. Catherine de Médicis' chefs may have brought it to France when she married Henry II in 1533. For centuries, macarons were simple, single cookies. No filling, no ganache. Then, in the 1930s, a pastry chef at the Parisian house of Ladderie had the idea to sandwich 2 shells together with a flavored cream. That's it. That's the innovation. 2 cookies, glued together with filling. The modern luxury macaron was born. Today, Ladderie sells millions annually, and a single macaron in Paris costs more per gram than prime steak. The lesson? Paris didn't invent the macaron. Paris made the macaron fashionable. And in the luxury food world, fashionable is worth more than original. Verdict: Italian origin, Parisian reinvention, now sold for $5 a bite. This is the strangest origin story in this entire episode, and it's one of the most likely to be true. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec was a Post-Impressionist painter, famous for his depictions of Parisian nightlife, the Moulin Rouge, cabaret performers. He was also, by all accounts, obsessed with food and entertaining. Around the turn of the 20th century, Toulouse-Lautrec reportedly invented what he called chocolate mayonnaise. Beaten egg yolks emulsified with chocolate. He served it at dinner parties in Montmartre. The technique was essentially the same as making mousse, whipping egg whites to soft peaks, folding in chocolate. Whether Toulouse-Lautrec was truly the first, or just a colorful early adopter, the dish found its permanent home in Parisian cuisine. By the mid-20th century, mousse au chocolat was on every respectable French menu. Invented by a painter at a dinner party? That sentence is so Parisian it almost feels made up. Verdict: possibly invented by a Post-Impressionist. Definitely delicious. Here's a story about a happy accident, a teenage waiter, and the future King of England. The year is 1895. The place is the Café de Paris in Monte Carlo, but not Paris, which is already suspicious. A 14-year-old assistant waiter named Henri Charpentier is preparing a dessert for a party that includes the Prince of Wales, the future King Edward VII. According to Charpentier's own account, in which he published decades later and which some historians question, the sauce caught fire accidentally. Rather than panic, he tasted it. It was extraordinary. He served it. The prince loved it and asked the name. Charpentier, thinking quickly, said Crepe Suzette, named for a young French girl in the prince's party. The dish went on to become the signature flambé dessert of Parisian high dining. Every fine dining room in the world has served Crepe Suzette tableside with the dramatic orange liqueur flame. There are scholars who dispute Charpentier's entire account, but even if it's embellished, and it probably is, the dish itself is real, and it became Paris's. Verdict: may have been invented in Monaco by a teenager. Paris claimed it anyway. We keep coming back to the same suspect, Catherine de' Medici. When Catherine de' Medici arrived in France from Florence in 1533 to marry Henry II, she brought her Florentine pastry chefs with her. Among the things those chefs are credited with bringing to France, or at least inspiring, is choux pastry. The light, airy dough made by cooking flour in butter and water, then adding eggs. Profiteroles, choux puffs filled with cream and drizzled with chocolate sauce, became a staple of Parisian patisserie. French pastry chefs codified the technique, standardized the filling, and exported it as a French invention. Italy brought the dough. Paris brought the system. The French culinary tradition is extraordinary at this, taking techniques from elsewhere, refining them into a doctrine, and teaching that doctrine to the world as French cuisine. It's not theft, it's cultural transformation at scale. Verdict: Florentine roots, Parisian execution. The pattern continues. This dish is from Burgundy, not Paris. And yet, it's the dish most associated with Parisian home cooking around the world. How did that happen? Beef bourguignon, beef braised low and slow in Burgundy wine with mushrooms, pearl onions, and lardons, is a regional peasant dish. For centuries, it was what you made in Burgundy when you had a tough cut of meat and a bottle of wine you weren't going to drink. Paris elevated it. Parisian haute cuisine restaurants put it on their menus, refined the sauce, and sent it out into the world as classic French cooking. Then, in 1961, Julia Child published Mastering the Art of French Cooking, and beef bourguignon became the first recipe she demonstrated on American television. It became the dish that taught America to take French food seriously. One recipe, one book, one television appearance. A regional peasant stew became the most famous French dish in America. Paris didn't make the dish. Paris gave it a stage. Julia Child gave it an audience. Verdict: born in Burgundy, exported by Paris, immortalized by an American in a Boston kitchen. Our final entry is named after a queen. Made by a chef so influential, he basically invented the concept of haute cuisine. And the queen in question? British. Marie-Antoine Carême was perhaps the most important chef in history. He cooked for Napoleon, the Tsar of Russia, and the Prince Regent of England. He codified the 5 French mother sauces. He designed extravagant architectural centerpieces out of sugar and marzipan. He is, in many ways, the foundation of what we call classic French cooking. In the early 1800s, Carême created the charlotte cake, a mold lined with ladyfinger biscuits or bread, filled with a cream or fruit mixture, chilled and unmolded. He named it after Queen Charlotte of England, consort of King George III. The charlotte became a standard of French patisserie. Carême's version was later refined into the charlotte russe, named for Russian imperial service, with a Bavarian cream filling. Both versions are still made today. A French chef, a British queen, a cake that defines Parisian elegance. Verdict: created by France's greatest chef, named for England's queen, perfectly Parisian. 10 dishes, 10 stories. And across all of them, the same theme keeps showing up. Paris didn't always invent the food, but Paris always knew what to do with it. Stolen from Austria, disputed with Spain and England, carried from Florence, born by accident in Monte Carlo, elevated from peasant markets, shaped by a labor law, Paris took all of it and turned it into the world's most imitated culinary identity. That's not fraud. That's something more interesting. It's branding at a civilizational level. The question is, what's the next city doing it right now? What food is being perfected somewhere, renamed somewhere else, and exported to the world as somebody's tradition? That's the episode I want to make next. Until then, stay curious.